So the thing that I did at first that ended up really waking me up was I said, all right, I'm going to just delete all of the apps on my phone for a day. Can I go for a day? And I was able to go for a day, and most people will be able to go for a day. What I think I didn't realize is how many little times instinctually I was just reaching for my phone like it was a cigarette. I would just be sitting somewhere and just reach in my pants for my phone, pull it out, start looking at it. I was like, oh, wait, I don't have anything to look at. And then put it back in my pants. And the amount of many times I was doing that throughout a day was insane. And when you start compounding that over the course of a week and a month, it's a tremendous amount of time that we're all spending on these things.
We have an awesome familiar face here today. If you tuned into Writing with Authors, you learned all about his incredible book, Advice to a 20-something-year-old. And I get my excitement is here.
You're good.
I'm on mute. Oh, I'm good. No.
Yeah.
Let's run it from the top here. Okay, here we go.
Okay.
Shake him off, shake him off. A mental health break. We are back with an incredible advocate turned author with his story. I had a chance to meet him over the last year writing his book. We're going to dive right into it, so don't worry. This is a mental health break. My name is Vincent A. Lancy, and I welcome you to the #1 podcast for mental health advocates and champions. Today, Nick has put this book together, worked hard at it, but his goal with it is to give back to his 20-year-old self. Welcome to the show, Pat. It's great to see you.
Good to see you, Vincent.
What led you to want to put your story into a book?
That's a great question. It really started a couple years before the book was even an idea. I was a kid who, and we can get into this story later, who I ended up trying to take my own life as a teenager. And in the next preceding half decade, really changed my life and was able to really find happiness and joy and really break a lot of those mental health challenges that I was facing. And once I kind of had done the work and really felt like I had become really the truest version of myself, I took a Forbes top 5 job in America. I was really happy in my career. I was this kid in college who had completely changed his life. I felt like I was living this kind of lie that I hadn't told people that, I had been through these challenges. And so the easiest way I thought to get through it was just to write an article that I could send just to kind of my family and friends to say, hey, this is what happened to me. This is who I was. And this is what's changed since then. And when I showed it to a couple of my friends and family, they were like, first of all, we had no idea. The ones that didn't already know. They said, one, we didn't, we had no idea, but also we feel like more people need to see this. So, a little bit of 20-year-old ambition with a couple swigs of Mad Dog 2020 with my college budget.
Mhm.
I uploaded this article to a blog site and it went viral. And really it was just my story of kind of the kid I was and what I had been through and then transforming into the realest confident version of myself. And so a couple of years had gone by, but the biggest thing that had happened with this article was that not only were people reaching out saying, "Wow, I had no idea," which is obvious, um, but they were reaching out saying, me too. Like, I'm a 22-year-old who is going through the same things that you are, and it wasn't just people that I had grown up with; it was people from all across the country, and the number of people that ended up reaching out was pretty shocking. And the one thing that I didn't include in my article was how did I get better? And so the book really became the best mechanism of, okay, how can I put all of this constellation of things as when you talk about with your guests all the time, like people on a podcast will ask you, how do you fix your mental health? Well, it's a lot of things, right? There's a lot of different things going on in all of our lives that we need or that affect us and that are coming in that we need to grapple with. And so a book felt like the best mechanism to do that. So I went on the journey of writing it.
I'm going to backtrack to the blog. When you had it written out, you finally had it typed up.
Yeah.
What was it like clicking that enter button, that publish to the world button?
It was a little bit terrifying if we're going to be fully transparent. Um, I knew first of all, I thought if this helps one person, then it's worth everything. But in truth, I had just accepted kind of the biggest job of my life, a job where I was talking to executives every day who certainly would be Googling my name, and this would certainly be the first thing that popped up. And I was terrified. I was like, are people going to think I'm crazy? Are people going to think I'm a loon? But all of that kind of was worth it when my friends were like, this is going to help people, right? And so it was call it my frontal cortex wasn't formed yet, and I really didn't weigh out the risk reward of it well enough. But
Yeah.
I just hit send, and then in 15 minutes, my life was different.
And sometimes we have to jump outside that unknown, that
Yeah.
discomfortable situation. And it really, truly transformed him because now he said, okay, he looked at this. I want to make a bigger difference and put this book together. What are some things we should know about the book?
Yeah, I think the book is a take on the typical self-help formula where I try to make it less, for lack of a better term, arrogant. I think most self-help books, if you take a look at them, are presented from a place of I know more than you, and here's something that you need to know. Um, and and I don't think authors intend this, but it often comes off reading that I'm better than you. Uh, Early on in the book, I say, I'm not your guru. Everything that I talk about in this book, I've tried and failed at and tried and failed at and continue to fail at, right? So the book is written in a way, it's really where I'm just having a conversation with the person who's reading it, saying, these are the things that I did. This is where I struggle. This is the science that backs everything that I'm saying. Here may be some of the societal influences or the kind of the social aspects of it, but nevertheless, in a really a conversational, easy to read manner.
Mhm.
I try to make it funny. PSA, I swear a little bit in the book, right? It's very much just a very honest, raw take on the self-help formula.
And that's what I love about you. You're just authentic. You're putting it out
Yeah.
there and you're going to make a difference along the way. What do you see next as far as the book? Do you see this eventually turning over to another book, or what's your plans in this world?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing right now is just continuing to hammer out the message and try to help people. Whatever that is. I don't think there's a part two coming of this book. Maybe there's a different book. I think there's other things that I want to write about for sure. Um, but I think right now it's really just hammering out the message of hope for a lot of people, especially those in their 20s. And I thought really what I thought about when I wrote the book is, despite my bald head, by the way, I'm 26 years old. Um, and I haven't seen many people who are our age, young like us, talking about this stuff and saying it from our perspective. You hear a lot of, and Jonathan Haidt's doing great work, right? There's a lot of people in kind of the academic settings doing great work talking about the mental health crisis among youth, but there's no one in youth talking about it in a real way. And so, as much as I can get my message out there that there is hope and there is a better light for a lot of people, I'm going to keep doing that, whether that's podcasts or speaking or whatever it is, for as long as possible.
And you'll be great at it. How the show has pivoted is had been into these more open conversations. We have a few bullet points maybe in the air that we will discuss, but having real chats, real conversations one by one is slowly going to remove that stigma. When this
Yeah.
show started back in early 2020 in January, stigma couldn't have been higher. It was like
Yeah.
pulling hair to find a man to come on the show and talk
Yeah.
about mental health. But now, through networking, finding great people like Pat today to come on here and just let you know you're not alone. When you
Mhm.
were on that point where you weren't mentally healthy and you were finding your way back to becoming the guy you knew you could be, that confident self, what were some things that did work for you? As we talked about in the beginning,
Mhm.
jokingly, there's a lot of things that go on. What were some things that worked for you that maybe could help our audience too?
I think the one thing that is universal among people it's starting to be all demographics, but it's definitely true in the 20 something teenager category, is reconciling my consumption habits. And what does that really mean, right? Obviously it does mean food and exercise and all that stuff, the physical side of it, and all of that's important. I think that's been talked about enough. I provide no expertise in that regard. Exercise, go out in the sun, eat better, all that stuff is definitely going to help. But when I talk about consumption habits, the thing that I really want to drill down on in people is the media that they're consuming, whether that's on their phone, whether that's on TV. I think people are blissfully unaware of the amount of information that they're pumping into their brains and what effect that's having on them in the long term. And then also how they can reconcile on that and make those tools for living a better life and not a detriment to their own.
I love that. And I'm a big advocate for the social media timers. There's not
Yeah.
many. I put up, I don't know. I try to be authentic in my social media and interact. I put up polls from here and time to
Yeah.
time about things, and I'll say, ask those questions.
Yeah.
Do you use social media timers? It's always no. And it takes a lot of discipline. People say, well, you can override. I said, yes, but that's not the point of it to
Right.
override it or don't have it. You For me at least, I'll say going down a rabbit hole of just scrolling and this
Mhm.
and that, it never is productive for me. And I get off track with what I need to accomplish for that
Yeah.
day. I hop on to check my messages. I've never been a ghoster. If you've gotten me on email, or chances are I've answered you, unless you just tried to sell me something the first message and I probably didn't answer. But
Mhm.
as long as you said hello first, I probably said hi.
Yeah.
Love that. What was it like in the beginning trying to waver off media? I know we're in a go,
Yeah.
go, go phone world, excuse me, with our phone in our hands. Was it hard at first?
Of course it was. Yeah. I mean, first of all, these are just addictive, right? I mean,
Unbelievably.
the the social dilemma really exposed for a lot of people, but I don't think a lot of people took it to heart that these things are as addictive as cocaine or heroin or any illicit drug, right? So the thing that I did at first that ended up really waking me up was I said, all right, I'm going to just delete all of the apps on my phone for a day. Can I go for a day? And I was able to go for a day, and most people will be able to go for a day. What I think I didn't realize is how many little times instinctually I was just reaching for my phone like it was a cigarette. I would just be sitting somewhere and just reach in my pants for my phone, pull it out, start looking at it. I was like, oh, wait, I don't have anything to look at. And then put it back in my pants. And the amount of many times I was doing that throughout a day was insane. And when you start compounding that over the course of a week and a month, it's a tremendous amount of time that we're all spending on these things. And we're spending that ungoverned, which was the second piece that I had to look at. But now at this point, I've gotten to the point where I just take 2 weeks off every quarter
Love
just to
that.
reset that. I just reset the consumption habit completely. If I have posts that need to go out for work or whatever it is, I just pre-time them to go out. Every single podcast that I mentioned on it with like an entrepreneur bro, they're like, what if I need to post things? It's like you can, there's post schedulers out there. You can do it, I promise. And you take 2 weeks and just vacation away from it and see what your relationship is like when you go back and you realize kind of how gross out you are with yourself.
I love that advice. Thank you for sharing that. When I do my breaks, I don't even post them. I don't even schedule the posts. I believe in showing. I always It's crazy. I've never done it for followers, and because I've never, I guess, was too open about my brain injury in the
Yeah.
beginning, trying to capitalize on
Yeah.
that. I was just trying to share my story.
Yeah.
I'll lose a ton of followers every time I take a week off, but it's a
Mhm.
message I try to share that it's like you, don't be just drilled into this thing. Just don't do it. You'll be
Mhm.
on. I was on vacation with a friend a few years ago, 2 blocks back because he's on his phone just going like this, and we lost
Mhm.
him.
Mhm.
I did a post before we met somewhere on YouTube about like a pizza pie, how there's 3 hours, technically
Mhm.
it's a 24-hour day. 3 hours per day, I learned was very common for people to spend on social media. When you put that into perspective, 1/8 of your day, week, month,
Mhm.
year, life is scrolling on social media. Is that
Mhm.
what I wanted? And I stepped back, reflected, and that's just something that pushes me like, how much more could I get done even in
Right.
one more of those hours back during the workday?
Yeah. And I think too, when we think about it, we've just talked about the time piece of it, but then when we think about what that time is actually doing to us, right? The reflection of the world that it's giving back to us and how it clearly has caused widespread anxiety and depression. I mean, again, Jonathan Haidt did great work on this, but if you look at the numbers of teens with serious mental health problems, the spike happens pretty much the moment Instagram is on everybody's phone, right? In huge amounts. We're now at the point where nearly 1 in 5 high school students are contemplating taking their own life, which is maybe the most sobering statistic I've ever read in my life. But it's if the 1 in 5 are at the point where they're willing to take their own life, how are the other four, right? And that's um and that's why I'm so thankful for people like you that are in the space who are continuing to pump out a message to help people.
I appreciate the kind words. There was no goal. One of the few things I do with no plan. I launched these podcasts with no plan. Said, let's just see what happens. Was broke, solopreneur. I said, I got to find a way to keep sharing my message. Wasn't exactly writing another 50, 60,000 word book like my first one, Left for Dead,
Mhm.
by far my longest book. And it's been a therapy session every show. As an
Mhm.
entrepreneur, other entrepreneurs can relate out there. You don't get company insurance and you don't get all
Mhm.
these little perks that are really nice of being there. During COVID, my therapist had gone private. And from that point on, not only have I been limited, if all therapy, this has been my therapy where, all right,
Mhm.
I'm going to pack on two mental health break episodes today. All we're
Mhm.
doing is sharing what works for us, what doesn't
Mhm.
work for us. And by sharing what doesn't work for us, it helps just as much because you're not the only person in the world who is going through what you've gone through. And it may seem like that. I get it.
Mhm.
I didn't know, I didn't even hear of a traumatic brain injury really until I had one.
Right.
But as I find out, there's organizations like NAMI that always shed light on it. All of
Mhm.
these places where you can contribute your thoughts, your resources, and get it back full circle with great connections like today. I think what's important now, besides the phone addiction, is as we head into cold weather, we're going to be inside a lot more.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, yeah, that's
Where do you see that having some mental health effects?
well,
Just on you, on
the,
the masses, of course.
yeah, well, I think it's a good point to make. First of all, because when my mental health issues arose, when I was at the point of being suicidal, I lived in Minnesota in the winter. So I actually lived in Wisconsin in the winter, but there is the short of your answer, right? Is vitamin D is pretty much our most essential regulatory hormone that we have in our body to make sure that our emotions stay balanced. So there's a couple things. Number one is there's obviously the Andrew Huberman, just get out in the light, get some light on your face in the morning. But everybody should be taking a vitamin D supplement. They need to, if you don't have a doctor, you can just go to Walgreens and get one. Um, it's a water soluble vitamin, so if you take too much of it, you can just pee it out. But everybody should be taking a vitamin D supplement, and everybody, if you can, when you go out to your car in the morning, try to face the sun and get some sunlight on your face.
I'm a big advocate for taking breaks outside in the
Yeah,
sunlight. I do it all the time. I probably did it 4 or 5 times today. Just
yeah.
going outside for literally 5 minutes, getting the sun on, getting the trees, the natural air, all of that great stuff. I used to just be so, I guess, addicted and habitualized with putting headphones on when I go outside,
Mhm.
grab my phone. I'm one of the only people I know in my age group that tries to keep their phone on the counter or something.
Mhm.
I feel weird when I go somewhere and everybody's on their phone because then I just feel inclined to go ahead and take out my phone and I get
Yep.
off track. But we've talked about a lot of great stuff today, and I think a lot of areas that relate with everyone. We all have this phone in our hand. We all, I don't think all, but many of us have experienced heavy anxiety, these intrusive thoughts. How do we get better? One way is going to be to pick up this guy's book. So I'm going to ask you just to share the title one more time and where
Yep.
you can find that.
Absolutely. It's The Real Confident You, advice from a 20-something suicide survivor. You can find it on Amazon right now. We've left the ebook version at 99 cents because we don't think price should be a factor in someone getting this information or not getting this information.
Love that.
It's also available in paperback and hardback. You can find me easily, probably easiest on Instagram at Pat Broe, PatBroe. And then if anybody is going through anything and just wants to talk, you can either shoot me a DM on there or at the real confident you at gmail.com. Shoot me an email. I'd love to chat.
Thank you for sharing that. And before I let him go, do you have a last word for everyone out there who may be having a tough day today and doesn't know what to do?
I think right now, take a second, take three deep breaths, and write down 10 things you're grateful for. Your day's going to change.
I love that. Everyone, he's kept it simple today, which is what we need in this chaotic world. I want to thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much, Pat, for taking the time to join another show. Everyone, if you want to learn more about his book, no worries. I'm going to drop the Writing with Authors interview in the show description. That way you can get to know Pat a little more. Be sure to connect with him if you resonate at all. He's a great guy to have in your corner. I am at Vincent A. Lancy everywhere online. The show is at a mental health break on all podcast platforms, all social media. So show us some love there. And this show is brought to you by Coming Alive Podcast Production, your one-stop shop for podcasting. Head to comingalivepodcastproduction.com to learn more. But with that, two Florida guys today signing off. Pat, thanks so much.
See you later.